Hello dear students, welcome to social science class. Today we are going to study about the executive, the next important institution. Who are the executives? Executives are the functionaries who take day-to-day decisions but do not exercise supreme power on the behalf of the people. Say for example, the parliament passes a law. Now who will execute or implement that law? There the role of the executive begins. There are two types of executives. One is the political executive, another is the permanent executives. Political executives. Political executives are elected by people for a specific period of time. This specific period of time in our country is 5 years. These political executives are the ministers. They take big decisions. All the decisions, major decisions, are taken by the political executives. Then, who are permanent executives? Permanent executives are appointed on a long-term basis. For getting appointed as a permanent executive, they have to go through the competitive exams. They have to complete their degree. Then they fight the competitions. Then they get selected. Then they get training, and then they get the position. So the civil servants come under the category of permanent executives. They carry out day-to-day administrations. Whatever policy decisions are taken by the political executives, they are actually executed by the permanent executives. Now, the question arises, who is more powerful? Political executives or permanent executives? Who is more expert? Most probably, a permanent executive is more expert. The reason behind it is that he is well trained for that particular job. Then, but who is more powerful? A minister or a political executive is more powerful, who may have less knowledge compared to the permanent executives. So the question arises here, why is a political executive more powerful compared to the permanent executives? There are a few reasons behind it. First reason, in a democracy, will of the people is supreme. You all know that. How the political executives are elected? They are elected by people. And as India is a democratic country, and that's why in a democratic country, will of the people is supreme, and that's why minister is more powerful. Second, they are answerable to the people for all consequences of their decision. If they take a decision and suppose that decision goes wrong, who have to answer the media, who have to answer the public? That will be the ministers, not the permanent executives, because permanent executives are only following the orders of the political executives. Even if any of the decision which goes against the will of the people, in the next election, people may vote that particular minister out of the race. Third, the minister decides the overall framework and objectives in which decisions on policy should be made. Suppose a new government is formed, and what sort of decisions have to be taken, that will have to be decided by the political executives, not by the civil servants. And finally, the minister takes advice of experts on all technical matters. Say for example, a minister wants to take a decision, then he will call a meeting of all the experts. All these experts will give their own views, all technical matters, whether that decision is according to the constitution or not. Because in our India, every decision which is taken by the government, that must be in accordance with the constitutions. So expert will give different views, but who will reach to the final decision? On the final decision, the particular minister will reach, and that's why minister or a political institution is, or a political executive is more powerful compared to the permanent executive. Prime Minister. The Prime Minister is the most important political institution in the country. Who appoints him? The Prime Minister is appointed by the President of India. But the President cannot appoint any person whom he likes as the Prime Minister. Then who can be appointed as the Prime Minister? The President appoints the leader of the majority party. Suppose a general election takes place, and the party which is having maximum number of seats in the Lok Sabha and having a clear-cut majority, or suppose and no party is having a clear-cut majority, but there is a coalition, but all the coalition of parties, which suppose number of parties have come together and form a group or a coalition. In that case, the leader of that coalition that can command a majority in the Lok Sabha, that person will be appointed as the Prime Minister. So in short, we can say that a leader of that party who is having majority in the Lok Sabha, or a leader who is leading a coalition, is appointed as the Prime Minister by the President of India. Next, the Prime Minister does not have a fixed tenure. It means that the Prime Minister can remain in office till the time he has majority, or his party or his coalition is having majority in the Lok Sabha. The day when he loses the majority and no confidence motion is passed in the Lok Sabha, then and there the Prime Minister has to resign. And that's why we can say that the Prime Minister does not have a fixed tenure. Generally, the Prime Minister of the party which is having clear-cut majority, he remains as the Prime Minister for 5 years. Next, the Council of Ministers. The President appoints a number of ministers on the advice of the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister gives the names of all the ministers, and then these ministers are appointed by the President. So the group of these appointed ministers is known as the Council of Ministers. They have different ranks. There are mainly 3 types of ministers under the Council of Ministers. First category is the cabinet ministers. They are the top leaders. Say for example, Home Ministry, Defense Ministry, Finance Ministry. The top ministries these cabinet ministers have, and that's why they are also known as the inner ring of the Council of Ministers. In parliamentary democracy, most of the decisions are taken by the cabinet ministers. And that's why sometimes such type of democracy is also known as cabinet form of government. Next type of ministers are the Minister of State with independent charge. These are the ministers which are usually in charge of the smaller ministries compared to the cabinet ministers. And then the third category of minister is the Minister of State. These ministers are actually attached to and required to assist the cabinet ministers. So in total, there are about 60 to 80 ministers in the Council of Ministers. The powers of the Prime Minister. The Constitution of India does not say a lot about the powers of the Prime Minister, but he enjoys a wide-ranging powers. The reason behind it is that he is the head of the government. Remember it, note down. The Prime Minister is the head of the government. He chairs cabinet meetings. Whenever all the cabinet ministers sit together, he is the leader of that meetings, or he presides over that meeting. He coordinates the work of different departments, and his decisions are final in case of disagreement. Suppose the two departments have any different views, then the decision of the PM will be final. He exercises general supervision of different ministries. All other ministries work under the Prime Minister of India. The Prime Minister distributes and redistributes work to the ministers. He has the power to dismiss any minister, even if all the ministers are appointed by the President. But the President appoints only those people as the minister whose names are given by the Prime Minister. Even he can change the ministries. And last of all, when the PM quits, the entire ministry has to quit. This is also termed as the collective responsibility. Next important institution is the President. The President is the head of the state. He supervises the overall functioning of all the political institutions. All the political institutions, how do they work? He supervises over them. How he is elected? The elected members of the parliament, MPs, and the elected members of the legislative assembly, that are the Vidhan Sabha. The members are known as the MLAs, elect him. In our political system, he exercises only nominal powers. Now, what does it mean? It means that according to the Constitution of India, he is bound to work on the advice of the Prime Minister and Council of Ministers. So, in reality, his powers are exercised by the Prime Minister and his Council. Now, let's see what are the powers of the President as the head of the state. All laws and major policy decisions of the government are issued in his name. Say for example, a bill which is passed by both the houses of the parliament. How does it become a law? It becomes a law only when the president signs over it. Next, all major appointments are made in the name of the president. We read earlier, who appoints the Prime Minister? President. Who appoints the Chief Justice of India? The President. Okay. Who appoints the Chief Election Commissioner? The President. So all the major appointments are made in the name of the President. Next, all international treaties and agreements are made in the name of the President. And next, he is the Supreme Commander of the Defense Forces of India. If you look at all these things, you will feel that he is the most powerful person. But see the last point. He exercises all powers on the advice of Council of Ministers. So all these powers which have been mentioned here, he can use only when he is recommended to do so. But you may think that is there any power which he himself is having? Yes, there is one power. That power is known as the discretionary power. And he uses this power in such a case when after the election there is no majority in the Lok Sabha. In that case, he can use his own wisdom and can invite the leader of a party which is having maximum number of seats in the Lok Sabha as the Prime Minister, and then he can ask him to prove the majority. That's all in today's lesson. Thank you and have a nice day.